conquering vast swaths of territory with the might of his Mongol hordes. Genghis Khan was a terrifying and a brutal figure. He was also one of the most influential human beings in the history the world has ever seen, leaving a legacy not only of a carnage and destruction, but of law, order, and empire building that would echo through the centuries. His actions irrevocably changed the course of human history and helped shape civilizations as it is today. Given the name of Temujin, after one of his enemies his father had conquered, Genghis Khan, as he later became known, was born under an auspicious circumstances. A clot of blood in his hand signaled that there was an important spiritual connection to him. He was also said to have been of divine origin, with his ancestors being a grey wolf. His father, Yasuge, arranged an arranged marriage between his son and Bote, a daughter of a powerful chieftain. Through this marriage, Yasuge would gain a powerful ally. But before the marriage could happen, Temujin would have to spend a significant amount of time in his father-in-law's household as part of Bote's dowry. After delivering Temujin to his new home, Yasuge began the journey back. He, however, would not live much longer. Temujin's father, Yasuge, was poisoned when Temujin was just 9 years old. While traveling home from the household of Dey Sejin, Temujin's future father-in-law, he met up with Tatar, the travelers on the way. Without knowing, he didn't know that he didn't recognize him, but they recognized him as an old enemy and slipped poison into his food. It was not a fast-acting poison, and Yasuge made it home. Although his conditions had significantly deteriorated, he died shortly thereafter. With his father being dead, many leaders and soldiers abandoned the clan, and Temujin spent a portion of his childhood in dire poverty. His family was reduced to a simple hunter-gatherer lifestyle just to survive. They foraged for food, collecting roots and nuts while also fishing, hunting small games. So he lived in poverty beginning of his life. A surprising fact is that Genghis Khan murdered his half-brother. During the time when he was suffering from the hardship after his father being dead and abandoned by the clan, life was difficult and frustrating for him. He had fights with his half-brother Better over who was the rightful heir of Yasuge. Temujin was the son of Yasuge's chief wife, but Better was 2 years older. This meant that Better could marry Temujin's mother and become Temujin's stepfather. The situations came to head one day while fighting over a hunting spoils. Temujin and his younger brother Qasr ambushed and killed Better. He was taken prisoner by one of his father's former allies. It is claimed that Temujin was held captive on more than one occasion. On one of these occasions, he was taken prisoner by the Taichud clan, which had been allied with his father before his death. Temujin escaped his confines and hid near Onon River, and then in the tent of a man named Sorkan Shira, who had seen him but had decided to raise the alarm. He didn't raise the alarm. So Sorkan Shira sheltered Temujin for 3 days before helping the young boy escape. And later in the story, he had gifted him with lots of land and thousands of horses back in return when he was become emperor. When Temujin was powerful enough and had acquired a retinue of allies and his own camp, he returned to Dey Sejin and requested to marry the woman to whom he had been arranged. Dey Sejin was delighted to see Temujin, who he feared had been lost or being killed. Dey Sejin immediately agreed to the marriage with Bote, and Temujin gained a powerful ally who helped him build up a force powerful enough to start out an empire. And he was a 15 years old. He was only 15-year-old then. He built a huge empire. By the time of his death in 1227, Genghis Khan's empire covered a roughly 4,060,000 square miles. Less than a century later, the size of the Mongol Empire was doubled, making it the largest contiguous empire and the second biggest empire in the history, second after British Empire. which happened later, very much later. His empire covered parts of what are now called China, Korea, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Afghanistan, Moldova, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, Turkmenistan, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and a large portion of Russia. During his conquest, he committed multiple genocides with brutal tactics that involved slaughtering entire cities if they did not surrender. Genghis Khan is responsible for deaths of millions of people, which is estimated 40 million people. These genocides occurred mainly in China and in northern Iran, but the scope of his killing was far and wide. 40 million people represented around 11% of the world population in the 13th century. Another surprising fact is that he was tolerant of other religions. At a time when religious intolerance was rife in Europe and the Crusades were underway in the Holy Land, Genghis Khan was practicing the exact opposite. He showed a very keen interest in other religions and studied Islam, Christianity, Taoism, and Buddhism. Throughout his empire, he passed a law declaring religious freedom. Places of worship were even exempt from paying taxes. The Mongols, being a nomadic people, were often ill-equipped to deal with the bureaucracy and other challenges that came with ruling a huge empire. The people he conquered often had skills that Mongols lacked. Thus, Genghis Khan made a point of promoting ethnic diversity to make use of the skills that certain cultures possessed. Genghis Khan had 400 women in total in his harem. Managing such a large harem was very difficult. It was divided into 4 sub-harems called ordos, and each wife or concubine had their own rank. Each order was ruled over by one of Genghis Khan's 4 principal wives, who had the rank of Khatun. The wives and concubines were housed in yurts, and Genghis Khan would visit several of them every night. As a result, he had an extraordinary number of children. There are many theories as to how Genghis Khan had died, and nobody knows for sure how it happened. One theory is that he was thrown from his horse and died from his injuries. Another theory is that he died from pneumonia or malaria. Others argue that he died in a combat during his final battle with the Chinese. A popular theory, at least from the perspective of telling a great story, is that he was murdered by a Chinese princess as an act of revenge. God knows how far it is that true. Killing by woman, such a great emperor. What a shame. For her not being able to be raped by him, she snuck into his tent at night and castrated him with a concealed dagger, and he died from his injuries. It's another theory, okay. Upon his death, Genghis Khan was buried in an unmarked grave by his most trusted followers. To keep this location a secret, they murdered everyone in the path of funeral procession. It is speculated that his burial place is on the Onon River near his birthplace in Mongolia. Genghis Khan is a controversial figure, there's no doubt about it. In Mongolia, he is understandably renowned as an iconic hero of the nation. There are many statues of him, and he appears on the banknotes of the Mongolian currency. He brought law, order, and civilization to his empire. But along with this came brutal genocides and misery for countless of millions of death. What cannot be argued is that, for good or ill, he was an important figure who changed the course of human history.